Okay, good morning Year 5. Today we're going to be learning about the stars and constellations. So before we begin, what have we been learning about over the past few lessons about our Earth and space? Yes, that's correct, Chloe. In the previous lessons we have been covering the sun, the moon, and how they rise and set. We've also done the Earth and the axis that it rotates on, and how the Earth moves around the sun as well. Can you remember how long it takes for the Earth to do one rotation? Yes, that's correct. It takes 24 hours for our Earth to do one full rotation, and that's how we get our nighttime and daytime. Daytime being when the Earth is faced towards the sun, and nighttime being when we are turned away from the sun. So in our lesson today, we're going to be focusing on the nighttime when the Earth is turned away from the sun, and this will specifically mean our stars and our constellations. By the end of the lesson, we should be able to identify, looking at our lesson objectives, identify different constellations and the nature of stars, create models to explain observations in the story about Scorpius and Orion, and explain the appearance of constellations at different times of year that support the model of the Earth orbiting the sun. Can anyone tell me what they think stars might be made up of? Not quite. So there is actually something in our solar system that resembles stars. So can anyone tell me what is something that we see every day that resembles a star? Yes, it's our sun. So our sun is actually classified as a star. It just looks different because the stars we see are a lot further away than our sun. So, what we're going to do next is a think, pair and share. And I want us to talk about what we know about the appearance of the night sky. This could mean talking about what we know about the stars, or even anything we know about constellations. So, now that we've had time to think, pair and share, think, pair, it's time to share what we've just been talking about. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? Yeah, thanks, Chloe. You've said that constellations are big groups of stars that are really close together and that they make up a certain pattern. So class, constellations are stars that make up a certain pattern in which we see from our Earth. But even though we can look into the night sky and they look like they are really close together, this just isn't the case. So to help us understand what I'm talking about, we're going to do a role play. Like we have done in our previous lessons where we have people play the sun, the earth and the moon, except this time we're going to add people in to be the stars. So, I have a graph, a model here of how I want our classroom to be set up. So we're going to have a person being the earth, the moon and the sun, and we've got our stars here as well. So I've set out an area on our floor that we're going to stand in, and it's going to resemble our model here. So I'm going to put this up here so we can see it, so we know how we're going to set out our classroom. So we've also, see how we have our solar system here? We know that the stars aren't in our solar system, and we know this from our previous lesson where we have learnt that this is not the case. Now I'm going to hand out some roles. So if you don't get a role, that's okay, because everyone's going to be involved in this one. If you do get a role, I'm going to give you a sign just like this, so you can hold it up so everyone knows what each person is. So, now the people who have a role, will you go stand in your positions that we have up here? And everyone else, we're going to be the people standing on Earth. So we're going to stand along this line here, and we're going to face out to look towards the stars. So we have had some time to look. what can we see? Yes, we can see the stars. When we look out, we can see the stars, and they look like they're all in a group, nice and close to each other, okay? But we're actually going to walk around to the other side, walk around here, and we're going to look from a different perspective. So, now that we've changed our perspective, we can actually see that the stars aren't next to each other in a line. They're actually spread apart like this. So we were able to determine that even though the stars that make up a constellation are actually not close to each other in space. Remembering this was only a small scale as well, so in our space it's actually way, way further away, the stars. So now that we've done that activity and we understand that our stars are not close together in groups in space, we only see that from when we're standing on Earth, okay? We are actually going to go further into what constellations are. So in the next part of the lessons, we have 2 different constellations that we're going to look at, named Orion and Scorpius. So if you haven't heard of them before, I'll give you a little bit of a background from a story called Star-Crossed Story. And we're going to read this out together as a class. Now that we've read the story, we're going to do the challenge that it says at the bottom. So from our story, we know that the constellations have never been seen together at the same time in the night sky. So we've got our sun here. This is a part of our activity. We've got our sun. And we have our Earth. So we know that our Earth is out here rotating around the sun. And we have our 2 constellations, Orion and Scorpius. So they go on the sides out here. Now first we're going to, what does our Earth do around our sun? Yes, that's correct. Our Earth moves around the sun, just like that. What does the Earth do during the day? Yep. Yes, it rotates like this. So when we see, so this says things we can see. When we're turned this way, we can see the sun. But when we're turned out this way, what do you reckon we can see? What is it facing towards? Yes, our constellation of Scorpius. Does that mean, so when we're at this point around the sun, we can see Scorpius. What about when the Earth comes around this side? What can we see? We can see the constellation of Orion. Okay? So, what we've learnt from this is that throughout the year, when the Earth goes around the sun, we are at different points around the sun. So that means that different parts can be seen, different constellations can be seen at different times of the year. And when our Earth is rotating during the day, we can see either the sun or we can be faced out to see the stars. And this is at night time, isn't it? So just to finish off our lesson, I want to see a thumbs up if you think that we have achieved our lesson goals that we went through at the start of the lesson. A middle thumbs if we think we got some of them, but not all of them. And a thumbs down if you don't agree that we got any of our lesson objectives today. Awesome. So we've got one last thing to do. We have one word to add to our word wall. What's a word that we learnt today that we hadn't heard before? Yep. Oh, constellations. Awesome. So we're going to add that to the bottom of our word wall. And I'll see you in our next class.